Oh, okay. I'm not going to edit that out because you all know Ellen's usually around. Let's try and get this to sit right again. Okay, so hello everyone. It is Claire, as I'm sure you already know, and Ellen is here. So just to address why there is Halloween pads in front of you and not Christmas pads, it is because Ellen is about. I am actually filming this video down in the dining room and brought my mat down, and she wants to be in here, so I don't allow her near anything from the sewing room upstairs. So all the cloth pads are kept separate. So these are actually mine, which have just come out the dryer, hence why it's Halloween theme. And now she's wandered off anyway. But I have brought down some Christmas ones to show you, and I will show you in a second. So today I'm going to do a Q&A video. And before that, I'm just going to do a couple of updates. So the next stocking is going to be in the Etsy store this Sunday coming at 8 PM. It will be half Christmas and winter and half normal prints, because that's what everyone in the group wanted most. So I've gone kind of half and half, so you can still get your tulas and the new yoga print, which has been super popular. And then you can also get your Christmas and winter and your themed pads, which I will show you a couple of now. Let me grab them because they're on the side away from the table. So this is one of the prints. You might recognise this because we did have this print last year. It is one of the most popular, and people actually order this for customs all year round. But I couldn't leave it out because it's just so cute. Look at the little deer, and then there's a little bird sitting on, I don't know if that's presents or a chimney. I'm not really sure. Take your pick, really, but super cute. Then we have some Christmas doggies. Don't tell Ellen. I'm sure she won't be impressed, as I could not find any Christmas cats this year. So this one is super cute. Then there is what I think is my favourite of this year's Christmas prints, short of the stockings, which I will tell you about in a minute because they are my absolute favourite prints, which is why they're in there. But this is definitely my favourite one from the shop, with the deer and the owl and the little robin. Super cute. And then we have some Christmas foxes. And there's some trees, Christmas trees, and some other Christmassy prints as well, but I just thought I would give you a bit of a preview in case you're not already in the Facebook group. So that's the stocking. I'm also doing a different kind of stocking, the Christmas hang-up kind of stocking, as our version of a cloth pad box for this Christmas. But I want to do something a bit different from a box, and something you could reuse or upcycle. So the stockings are handmade by us. They'll be all different colours, and they're all made of brand new anti-pill fleece. So you can either use them as a stocking in future or re-gift them, or you can actually take them apart and upcycle them to make yourself some liners, lights, regulars with that as your backer. So I thought that was kind of a cool way to kind of bring the cloth pad into the stocking. Inside your stocking, you can choose between having a liner and a regular, or a heavy and a mega pad. So there's 2 pads in each, and you can choose between winter and Christmas theme, depending on which you would prefer. Then after that, you will get lots of handmade goodies. We are making everything ourselves. I'm kind of combining both my holistic business with this business. So you're going to get lovely handmade things that we have made here. So you do get more for your money than if we actually outsourced to other people or went to the shops and got stuff. There will be no food because a lot of people are gifting these stockings. So you don't need to worry about any food allergies or anything like that, because there won't be any food. And the only treat in the stocking I'm giving away is the fact that there will be some of my handmade candles in there, which are made with organic, non-GMO soya wax and essential oils. So that will be one of the things that is in your stocking. If you would like to order, the closing date is actually tomorrow. I know most of you are in the group, so you have access to the Google form there. If not, I will pop the Google form down below in the description, but it will be removed on the 16th. The 15th is the last day that you can order. International stockings go out the first week in December. UK stockings get posted the second week in December. So if you have not heard about the stockings yet, then now is the time to check that out. There's lots of information and things on the form for you. So that's updates, I think. So we will get on with the Q&A. Now, the first question, I'm obviously going to address this first because it is the most important question of all the questions, is how is Ellen, as she has not been seen in many videos lately? Well, I haven't made loads of videos lately, but the videos I have made. I don't force Ellen to come in the videos. If she wants to, if she has access to the room I'm in and I'm not doing it in the sewing room and I'm doing it here, then she just wanders around the house, and if she wants to jump up, she can jump up. If she's off sleeping somewhere, she's off sleeping somewhere. But she's actually really well. Daisy's very well, and our two bunnies are very well. We're actually building them whole new house because they're in a big aviary, big house thing and stuff for winter, to overwinter them better. So that's what's going on with the animals at the moment. Now, I've compiled a short list of questions from the huge list that I compile every time I get repeat questions from people. So hopefully this will address most things that have been coming in the last couple months. We're going to start with PUL questions, as I get so many questions about PUL. So the first question is PUL breathable and waterproof? I've heard mixed things from people in the Facebook groups, and I'd really be interested to know before investing if it truly is breathable and waterproof at the same time. Well, it is confusing, and I get variations of this question constantly, to be honest with you, because there is mixed information on the internet, in the Facebook groups, some makers who don't like to use PUL because they've just chosen to go a different way, or they don't like sewing with PUL because it is more difficult, do tend, and I hate that I see it in the groups, to give out misinformation when people ask them about PUL. So as always, I'm very research based, as you know from a lot of my videos. PUL is in fact breathable and waterproof. So yes, it is. Now here's why. PUL is covered in loads of tiny little microporous spots. So basically little tiny dots that are really holes, but they're very minute. Now what happens is everything around us, everything is made of molecules basically. We are, everything we're touching, liquids, you name it. And microporous spots can come in all different sizes. Now, when they made PUL, they used a specific size of microporous spots, which means air molecules and vaporized water, which is sweat, in this case, as we're talking about it. So sweat and air can pass through because their molecules are small enough to go through the PUL. So therefore it is breathable when it comes to airflow and sweat wicking away and out of the pad. But when it comes to liquids such as water, urine and blood, their molecules are much bigger and they can't get through the tiny microporous spots that are on the PUL. So that is what makes PUL waterproof, is that they physically, their structure does not allow for them to go through that hole, but air and vaporized sweat will go through the holes that are on the PUL. So yes, it is waterproof, and yes, it is breathable. Next, where is it? Can you leak through the back of PUL? Now this is a really interesting question to me because I have done tons of research on PUL, tested PUL. I have spoken to countless people about it. And the fact of the matter is you can't technically leak through the back of PUL. When PUL is intact and it hasn't been sewn through, for example, you do not want to sew your core right through to your backer, for example, that would of course cause leaking. But if your PUL is an intact layer in your cloth menstrual pad, you can't physically bleed through it. Like I said, the molecules, they can't get through. But what can happen is PUL can become damaged. Either when you're sewing it, you could nick it. I actually, when I first started out with the business, I ordered PUL from somewhere and it arrived. And if you've worked with PUL, you know it has like a clear layer film attached to it, and that was already peeling off. So I sent that straight back to them and got a refund, because if that happens, the integrity of the PUL, you know, is destroyed. You can leak through it. So if your PUL is damaged, you can absolutely leak through it. The majority of times though, that is not going to happen as long as your PUL is intact. Now, the reason a lot of people think they have leaked through PUL is because they will have a pad and they will bleed onto this area here, or any of these round the edge areas, could even be out to the wings depending on your pad and what your problem is. But if you leak over to here, especially when you've got like PUL in the pad, you have probably compressed your pad, or your core is not absorbent enough for your flow. So basically the core is saturated. Now, once your core is saturated, and this with any backer, not just PUL, but it's just easier because PUL is slidey on the inside, is it will leak out of your core because the core can't hold any more fluid, and then it will head over to this stitching and the stitching along here from where the pad has been turned. Now, these are spots where you can definitely leak through with blood, because it's nothing to do with the PUL. It's actually the top layer of the fabric you're leaking through, where the stitching is here and where the stitching is around here, where there's small perforations. The blood goes through and then soaks through onto this side of the pad. So when you look at it, you'll look and go, oh, well, there's blood here, and then you'll turn it over and there could be blood here or blood on this part of the pad, and people think they've leaked through the PUL. But they've actually just leaked through this part of the pad, and then whatever fabric's on the back, be that the back of PUL or cord or whatever you've put there, cotton, any of it, has then soaked it, and it's made a patch of blood. So it looks like you've gone through the PUL. But as long as your PUL's not damaged, you've actually had a leak through these parts. And that is almost always due to your core not being substantial enough, or you saturating the core. Or another possibility is you have slept funny, scrunched up, and just literally just bled onto the wings or the outside of the pad, and it's leaked that way. So technically you can leak with PUL, you just can't leak through PUL unless the PUL is damaged or really, really old, in which case that's still damaged when the film's peeling off, etc. Can I iron PUL and put it in the dryer? You can iron a pad with PUL in. You don't want to iron directly onto a piece of PUL. But if I wanted to iron this pad now, which has PUL in it, then it would have no effect on the PUL whatsoever. And you can put PUL in the dryer. PUL was invented by the medical industry because they wanted a fabric, if you like, that could be multi-purpose, that they could use on wound dressings. So hence it needed to be breathable but waterproof, so that, you know, gross fluids from the wound, etc., can't get through it. And they also wanted to be able to use it for bed protection against accidents in beds and cots and children's beds in hospitals, all that sort of thing. So that's where it was invented for, and they wanted it to be reusable so that they could actually sterilize it. So it is kind of a myth that you have to wash your PUL on 30. You can wash it quite comfortably up to a 60, and you can put it in your tumble dryer as well, and it won't harm your PUL. Was there another PUL question? Yes. Can I use a shower curtain instead of PUL? Now, I get asked this one all the time. More than you can imagine, I get this, because obviously, quite rightly so, some people are upcycling, or they're trying to save money, or PUL just isn't available in their area, so they're trying to find a substitute. Now, some people do it. My personal advice would be don't. Now, there's several reasons for this. Firstly, shower curtains do not have the microporous spots on them. They are not breathable. They don't make shower curtains out of PUL. It is generally other types of plastics. So they could be sweaty and uncomfortable because they're non-breathable. Now, the next problem you have is that shower curtains are not designed for regular washing, and certainly not designed to be soaked in things like oxy or have stain treatments used on them. Most shower curtains will say that they can be taken down and washed on a 30-degree wash in the machine occasionally, and then taken out, hung straight back up in the shower, and that's how they dry. You cannot put a shower curtain in your tumble dryer. So it's not going to withstand the type of washing and cleaning that pads go through regularly. You can't put it in the dryer. It's not going to be breathable. And lastly is the chemical aspect of what's in those shower curtains, particularly the cheap ones. If you've ever bought a really cheap shower curtain and you get it out and it absolutely stinks up your bathroom until you can air that out, that is not stuff that you want to have in your underwear. And there's no way of knowing exactly what's in it. It is not designed to come into contact with intimate areas or the body in general. Short of you opening and shutting the shower curtain, it has not been tested and it's not designed for that kind of contact. So my personal advice would be don't do that. If you can't find PUL or you can't afford PUL, then try one of the other backers like anti-pill fleece, which although is not waterproof, you can bump your core up a bit more and still make cloth pads affordably without going down the shower curtain route. Okay, next. Cloth pads don't work for me as one never lasts all day. I don't understand why so many people love them when you have to keep changing them to get them to work. Why can't I just use one? Now, the reason I kind of copied that down verbatim is because I get variations on that of why is one not doing it. And they're having to change their pad, and surely that's not the whole point of this. The whole point is to be eco-friendly and it's natural materials, so I should be able to put it on in the morning and it should last until I go to bed at night. And I'm not really sure where that information's coming from, but unless you are someone who uses one disposable in a day, you are not going to be someone who uses one cloth pad in the day. The best way to kind of work out that I recommend for people new to cloth pads is to work out how many disposables you use and at what absorbency, and go for the same in your cloth pads. So I usually recommend working to having enough pads for 2 days and 2 nights, because then that will allow you to be washing pads and drying pads while you've still got a day's worth of pads to go, until you can afford or make and add to your stash if that's something you then want to go on and do. So if you use 6 heavy disposables in a day, then aim to use 6 heavy reusables. Now, that's not to say that you won't use less reusables, because they are more absorbent than the ones that you're getting down at the store that are made out of all that plastic and gel. So a lot of people find that they change less frequently with cloth pads, but you are still going to be changing throughout the day. So it's not one cloth pad for the day and one cloth pad for the night, unless that's what you're currently able to use in disposables. I did think that was an interesting question because I've never heard anyone say that don't worry, if you change over to cloth pads, you'll only ever use one. But I literally get the question all the time, so I'm not really sure. I'd be really interested if someone has heard that, if they let me know where they heard that from, because I'm kind of a bit fascinated by that. Why is buying cloth pads so expensive when I can make them so much cheaper at home? Now, this question I'm going to devote a little bit of time to because, again, it is a question that does get asked a lot. Sometimes, I personally haven't had it happen to me, but I have had friends who are makers that have had this thrown back in their face. Well, if that's how much your pads are, I'm not going to buy them, I'll make them myself. So I just want to devote a little bit of time to this. Now, if you make cloth pads at home, you have two routes to go down. Either upcycling or buying your fabrics and making them. You will either choose to do them by hand, in which case you will have the equipment to do that, or you will already have a sewing machine to make your own pads. Rarely do I see someone come to cloth pads, decide they want to try them for the first time and go out and buy a machine. They normally have a machine or can borrow a machine to give it a go. So your expenses are very minimal. If you're upcycling, you're looking at maybe you want to get some cottons or something to match the stuff you're upcycling. Some people don't even bother with that. Your fabrics are already prepped because you're upcycling and they will have been through the wash and dryer countless times. So there's little to no overheads there. If you go and buy your fabrics new, then you have a choice on what your budget is. You can go out and buy cheap cottons for your toppers. You can go out and buy inexpensive flannel to use as toppers and cores. Anti-peel fleece is very cheap. If your budget's a bit higher, then you might choose to buy Zool, but it's really going around your budget. And again, you invest in those materials in a small quantity, and that's your expense. So, of course, even just from the outlook, you are going to be able to produce them cheaper than a maker because makers do not upcycle fabrics, for example, and a lot of thought goes into a product before a maker starts making. So they will have designed pads specifically, worked on their pattern themselves, which will be unique to them, worked on their core, stuff like that. My pattern took ages to perfect, and my core took absolutely forever, sending out to testers constantly, which again is at your cost because you're having to make the pads. My core is not a simple 3 pieces of fabric put together and then sewn round in a core shape. My core's made in 3 steps, so it takes me a lot longer to make pads. So there's some expertise that go into it that you're paying for, compared to finding a free pattern online and giving it a go. But then even before a maker starts selling, they have to have a machine that will work with their fabrics. I started off with a hand-me-down machine that would not sew my mega pads with all the super heavy bamboo fleece that's in it. And I had to upgrade my machine. So I had the expense of a machine. Not every maker will have that because they may have a perfectly capable machine, but I personally had to also get that. You then need insurance, which is something you pay for yearly. So there's an added expense there. It's not a necessity that you pay for insurance for your business, but it is highly recommended, and I do recommend shopping with makers that do have business insurance and that have declared their business to the Inland Revenue and fill out their tax returns and all the rest of it. So there's the expense of business insurance. Then there's the fabrics. Makers do, on the whole, tend to use more premium fabrics. That's where you'll see specific dye jobs on bamboo velour, for example. One of the dye jobs that I had done was just under £35 for a metre, and that's for a topper. So that's pretty expensive. In my case, I use only premium cottons. Mine always start at sort of £14 a metre and go up from there. The Tulas heading into sort of between £20 and £25 a metre. Then you've got the core fabrics. Now, if you have looked around yourself to make with super heavy organic bamboo fleece or heavy organic bamboo fleece, which I have rolls of both, it is really expensive per meter. So you're getting a premium materials, kind of a premium pad, if you like, more specifically to whatever that maker is aiming for. Some have the expensive jersey fabrics for toppers. You know, some invest in Winpro for the backers. I have organic cotton corduroy backers and PUL in mine. So it varies between makers, but there's all these expenses. Then you have to have your machine has to go in once a year for a service, which you have to pay for. I go through needles at an alarming rate. I have to have a huge amount of different coloured poppers. I have to have a huge amount of different coloured cottons. So costs really add up when you're a maker as opposed to buying a very small quantity and sewing for home. And that does not even include the prepping of the fabric. In particular, in my case, my cord and my bamboo fleeces for the core take 7 hot washes on 60 and 7 hot dries. So there's a lot of electricity and extra added expense and wear and tear on both my machines there alone. So that's why you're basically paying for more premium fabrics than maybe you would invest in, the expertise of the shape and the design if the maker's done a special design core or whatever it is, and all the stuff that goes around it. So yes, you can make your pads at home cheaper, but it's completely up to you. If you want to buy them from makers, it is going to be more. And all of that is without the maker even taking a wage. So this is not an area to get rich quick. I have had several people turn to me and go, oh, you know, I've made my own pads now and I think I'm going to start a cloth pad business because it's easy money. You do not make a lot of money. The cloth pad makers who make these pads do it because they love what they do and they love helping other women. In my case, I love helping women that have endometriosis or other medical issues that mean they have insanely heavy flow. And that's what I specialize in. That's why I do this. I actually have another job because this would not be enough to live on. So I do have another business. Most makers don't make very much. They have another job. Their partners work. You know, my husband works. There's a lot that goes into it. So that is that question. I hope I have address that. Do wet bags have to be something special, or can I just use something from the store? Yes, makers do make some very nice wet bags, which if you can afford and you want, you can absolutely get one. But you can just as easily go down to your pound store, Superdrug, Boots. I think in the US you've got like Walmart and Dollar Store and stuff like that, and get makeup bags that have the white coating on the inside that you can wipe clean. A lot of them these days can even go in the wash, and that would be perfectly fine to keep your cloth pads in while you're out, or get a really large one for at home. So you don't have to have a maker made wet bag or a wet bag that says in it designed for cloth menstrual pads. Do I still do reviews of other makers, and do I have a favourite maker? Now, I do get asked this quite a bit, and a lot of people comment on my videos saying, are there going to be any more reviews and things like that. There is a reason I have stopped doing maker reviews, and that's because my endometriosis has got worse, and because of that my flow is heavier. So even the pads that I have reviewed that worked at the time for my endometriosis, which are other makers, supers and postpartums, that sort of thing, don't work for me now. So for the first 4 days of my period, I only use my own mega pads. So I actually have a ton of pads I do need to de-stash. This video is kind of a reminder to get on and do that. So I am very iffy about investing money because I have tried a lot of makers at this point, even ones I've not reviewed, and they just don't hold my flow. So I still have a lot of pads that I use for my regular days or my bleeding in between periods that I get with my endo. I have other makers' liners that I love, but I don't really need any more of those. And I can only use my own pads for the heavy days. So I don't, you know, want to waste money, if you get me, because there's not a lot of money. I'm sure you're all having the same issue. We're coming up to Christmas, money is short, things go wrong with cars and things around the house and you have to fix them. So I don't have disposable income that I can just go around buying pads I'm not going to use or I'll de-stash at a loss. Now, if there is someone you really, really want me to review, then do feel free to leave a comment and I will see what I can do. But I will say most of the UK makers I have tried. There are still about, I think, 3 or 4 that I haven't. I know someone asked if I could review Lady Days, and I might do that because I do like the look of their pads, but I probably won't get I'll probably just get regulars and do it that way. But if you do have something specific, then let me know and I will see what I can do. But that's why I haven't really been doing reviews at the moment. As to a favourite maker, it's difficult. Oh, that's the question. But if I was literally tied down and have to name one, it would be Radical Rags, which is not a UK maker. That's a US maker. I actually did review her if you want to go watch that review. And her pads that you'll see in that review, I still have now. They are cold backed, hidden PUL. They have never let me down. I use them as regulars and lights because I have such a heavier flow anyway that my regular and light is still reasonably heavy. And they look, honestly, pretty much the same as when I got them. So when it comes to quality and lasting, she does really good pads. So that would have to be my favourite maker at the moment, but I have many makers that I really like. But if I had to name one, it would be Radical Rags. Where are we now? What is your current wash routine? My wash routine has panned down even more from when I have spoken about this before, because like I just said, my effects from that with other medical issues are worse. So there's a lot, I just literally can't move when I'm on my period, simple as. So it needs to be really easy and something my husband can do if I'm literally off my feet altogether. So I take off my pad and I store it in a wet bag. The pads are then brought down in the wet bag to the washing machine, emptied out of the wet bag straight into the machine and put on a rinse. When the rinse finishes, I put in my detergent and I put the machine on again for a normal wash. Now, for the majority of my pads, once that wash has finished, they are stain-free and completely clean. So they then go off and go into my tumble dryer to dry off because I need them quickly. Any that do have any slight staining, and I've never had any real proper stains, just some shadow stains, but I still get agitated by that sort of thing. Then I take them out wet out of the machine, put on a little bit of Eco for Stain Stick, and then put them in my normal wash basket. So when the next lot of towels or whatever it is goes on, I just chuck them in with that on another normal load, and then they come out completely stain-free after that. So there's no oxying, in my washing machine because I really wanted to cut down, because it's got all synthetic fragrances and stuff in there. I really wanted to cut down on that sort of thing. Plus it was more work and took longer to wash them, used more water. So this is kind of, for me, the most effective routine that is easiest to do, quickest, and uses the least water as well for me personally. So yeah. Do I really need to prep new cloth pads that I've purchased? This really depends on the maker. I mean, when you're talking prep, as in if you get your cloth pads from a maker, I do believe and recommend that you do wash them once, no matter who the maker is, simply because they've gone through a making process. There could be some pen in there that the makers use, washable pen. We all use it to mark out our patterns, etc. So you want to wash that out, and it's travelled to you in the post. So you just want to give them a wash because it also gets them in your detergent that your body's used to and ready to use. So on that respect, give them all one wash. But when it comes to actually prepping with needing multiple washes, it depends on the maker. With my cloth pads, because I use the bamboo fleece as the cause, it has been extensively washed and prepped. So one wash when you get them home, and they are a really good absorbency for you to use straight away. If you are buying pads that the core, or making them yourself, that the core is Zorb 1, then you are going to want to wash them multiple times. You can wash them once and then use them, but just be aware that until you get sort of about the 8th wash, they're not going to be at a really strong absorbency. And all cores do get more absorbent and better as they are washed throughout their use and lifetime. So Zorb 1 is definitely one that needs a few washes before it gets to a really good absorbency. Other than that, you should be good to go really with most makers if they have prepped their fabric fully for you. It's only really Zorb 1 that makers can't prep for you and needs extra washes. What else do we have down here? How can I stop my core fabric stretching when sewing? Now, this seems to be a big thing because I know that a lot of you want to have nice straight cores and your pads looking aesthetically good. And if your core stretches, then things tend to go off a wee bit. Now, if you're using a stretchy fabric such as bamboo fleece, for example, which is very stretchy, Zorb dimples and stuff like that, again very stretchy, then you can use, oh excuse me a minute, oh sorry about that, you can use something to what we call stabilize it. So by adding a layer of flannel, thin flannel for example, on the back, it will stabilize that core and stop it from stretching and moving about. But my best advice is these clips, which I have shown before. These clips hold everything really securely. And if you are still worried, use clips and pins, and then nothing will move for you. And if you use a stabilizer as well, some people use muslin, some people use flannel, then you really are good to go. So, yeah. That is that. I think we're nearly at the end now. Yeah, I think this one I'm going to make the last one because I don't want this to get too much longer. I've heard there can be issues washing, looking after and getting a long life out of dyed OBV. Any advice before I invest? Now, the way dyed OBV is done, if you're making them yourself, you're going to get them from a dyer, the material that is, and the same as us makers, unless you're a maker that dyes the fabric for yourself, which I do want to have a go at, but I just have not had the time, to be honest with you. And basically they will prep the bamboo velour or the cotton velour so that it is pre-shrunk. Then they will dye it and do that process, and then they will give it another wash to get out any excess dye. Then it gets sent to you, and most of the dyers will say it is then ready to straight away sew with. When I personally get it, I give it another wash just to be sure, because you know, you never really know, and I'd always rather be more cautious than not. So you can give it another wash when you get it home. Now, while a lot of the dyes won't leach, occasionally they can leach colour, particularly if you're using harsh washing liquids, or a lot of soaking in OxyClean, stuff like that. It can fade them a bit. That's the real only issue I would say with dyed products, is they can fade over time with a lot of washing, a lot of using stain sticks, a lot of using OxyClean, or if you use harsher detergents or have a hard water in your area, then some of the colour can fade, but it's not going to take away from the effectiveness and the use of your pad. It may be a little bit annoying, but it's still going to be just as absorbent, just a little bit less pretty. My advice for keeping your OBV nice is using a natural detergent, not using like Persil and Ariel and stuff like that, because I don't use that, but a friend of mine does, and she found it leached a lot of colour out of her OBV pads. So they tend to be, from what I've seen, harsher, but in all the natural ones I've tried, I've never had that problem. Limit your OxyClean soaking. Don't soak them like wet store constantly throughout your period in Oxy or something like that, or use harsh things like vinegar in your water, because it can leach and fade the colour. And again, don't be too vigorous with your stain treatments and rubbing it in or sunning, stuff like that, because it will fade them a bit quicker, but it won't affect the use. So therefore I think it is still a really good investment, whether you're buying ready-made pads or you're going to invest in some OBV to do your own. So that is it, I think, for today. There's always so many questions. I think I've answered as many as I can today. If you do have any other questions, then do feel free to comment below, and I will either answer it in the comments, or if a lot of people ask it, I will add it to the list in the notebook that I take from when I do these videos. If you're not already in the Facebook group, then do come over and join. I'll put the link below. And if you want a stocking, Christmas stocking, with your pads and extras in, the link for the form is down below as well, so you can click on that. That closes, it will be the 16th in the morning. I will shut down that form, so you have the rest of today and all of tomorrow. And yep, the stocking is next Sunday at 8 PM. So if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up, and I will speak to you all soon. Bye for now.